Nigeria's vast lithium reserves, valued over $34 billion, is no doubt attracting world attention, while lithium factories are springing up in different parts of Nigeria already. The attention of the international mining industry is also focused on lithium because it is critical raw material for the production of solar panels and electric vehicles. Analysts predict that global lithium market could grow robustly over the next decade, driven by the rapid adoption of electric vehicles and renewable energy technologies. Data from a global future market insight showed that the lithium mining industry has emerged as a cornerstone of the clean energy transition, driven by the skyrocketing demand for lithium-ion batteries. The surge in lithium demand is driven largely by the electric vehicles market, which accounted for over 70% of the global lithium consumption in 2024, according to an Iranian-based research firm. With countries such as the United States, China, and members of the European Union pushing for next zero emission by mid-century, lithium demand is expected to escalate further. The federal government, indeed, the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, should intensify efforts geared at renewing and resuscitating the viable lithium industry in the country to its full potential. As Nigeria diversifies its economy into other sectors, the lithium industry offers hope and expectation that this sector would earn more revenue for the country. Nigeria should not just watch with folded arms, but must strive with the political will to develop and strengthen the country's vast lithium reserves.
Hello and welcome to SOUQ Business Landscape. Welcome back to SOUQ Business Landscape. Let's move on to the next story. Now, the federal government has directed vice chancellors, rectors, and provosts to immediately dismiss any student found after due investigation to have been involved in kidnapping or other violent crimes as part of efforts to improve security in tertiary institutions. Now, Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, issued the directive on Tuesday during a meeting with the Governing Council and the management of the Federal University of Lafia in Nasarawa State. The meeting followed concerns over alleged student involvement in off-campus kidnapping activities. Now, the government says the measure is intended to strengthen campus security, promote discipline, and deter criminals' activities within and around higher institutions across the country. So, Doctor, do you think this new directive, will it deter crimes? I mean, and it's not just kidnapping. We still have cultism, going on in these universities.
Well, I think government giving that directive, for me, I also suspect. I don't know why a criminal should be allowed to stay on campus. If a student had been arrested, for example, and arrested and suspected to be a kidnapper, why should the person be in school in the first place? He should be in detention and be going to court. I don't think it's issue of directive. It's just to allow people to do their work. Because that's not within the power of the governing council or the management of the institutions to do. The police should do their work. Anybody who is a Nigerian student today should be responsible enough, especially in tertiary institutions, to answer for their name.
But what gave rise to students, getting involved in kidnapping?
Well, you see, cultism in the Nigerian university system had been entrenched for too long. And because of the nature of struggle, as people put it those days, a lot of funding is required. They go for meetings, do all manners of operations, equip themselves. And I don't think your father will give you money to go and be doing cultism in school. So many of them are looking for unorthodox ways to raise funds, to perpetuate their nefarious activities. If you remember, there were days that you couldn't pass Agoiwe because of armed robbery that were going on. And many of those things those days were traced to students.
In the Onabanjo
Yes,
University.
yes. Oh, you. So a lot of all those things happen. Yeah, because children that are given to crime are also looking for resource to live that large. So armed robbery is not as lucrative today as people enjoyed in the 90s or in the 80s, where you could go into somebody's house or stop a vehicle on the road. You can have money in their houses or in their vehicle. So that business is no longer lucrative, as it were. So that's why you find that kidnapping is easier. So for a lot of people, don't need whether you have money in the house or not. But if it kept you in a very terrible situation, if your relatives or family want you alive, then they find a way to go and look for that money to give to us. So I think that's the attractiveness. That's the attractiveness. So I feel that for every lawbreaker, the legal system is available to avail justice. And if there are school authority or management who are making that not to happen, they could be sanctioned, actually. But police should be given the freedom to do their work. And if there's anything pointing to the student that such things happen, the investigation by all the law enforcement agencies, whether they are the DSS, or they should be able to go into the campuses and do their due diligence. And if people are found culpable, they should go to jail.
Okay, but these universities, do you think they are well equipped enough to investigate, carry out these investigations? And
It is not the duty
students
of the university to investigate. It's the duty of the police. It's the duty of the police. It's the policing system that should do the investigation. The school, they are not...
So you want police to, in our campuses? Is that okay?
No, I think the kidnappings are not happening in the campuses.
Okay.
Yeah, so if people kidnap people, they take them inside the bush, Abby.
What about cultism?
Yeah, cultism is a different ball game completely. And I think there are two things, but they're interrelated. Because I can tell you, most of those kidnappers to themselves are cultists. So all the cultists may not be kidnappers, but most of the kidnappers are cultists. So they are intertwined because both activities are nefarious. And I think what the school system has done over the time is that you have vanguards against cultism and people who mobilizes internally to fight that nefarious act within campus to ensure that nobody is oppressing another within the campus. But students themselves form themselves into those vigilantes to ensure that if students are not safe, it's also their own responsibility. And university also have internal security that they can also help police in this regard. But the fundamental job of investigation lies squarely at the doorstep of the police.
Okay, but if you look at security agencies, what role do you think students, parents, even the university of staffs can play in intelligence sharing, information gathering for the law enforcement agencies to be able to effectively, because students know who these cultists are. They might be scared to, but they know that there are certain colors that they quote unquote fly in campuses that would identify them as a cultist. So, what role do you think students, staffs, non-teaching staff or teaching staffs can play in intelligence sharing?
I think intelligence sharing is weak in our environment, and no thanks to some cultural factors that tend to suggest that you don't report your friends and relatives. So it's like an unwritten rule.
They call it snitching.
So if your brother is a criminal and you go to report your brother to police, even people within your environment are not going to be talking about the criminal. They'll be talking about you who went to do the reporting, because it's seen as like a rivalry between you and your brother. You don't like him. Yeah. And that's what makes us different from people from other climes. I think that if we grow to that level where people have proper values, that if a man is found to be culpable or to be involved in activities that are not nice, and it doesn't matter even if his father or mother reports those things to the police, and that child is taken or disciplined. So the bigger problem is that we have a kind of societal, well, I don't know what word to use here now, to see people are not, let me call it docility. You see things that happen in your environment and you are afraid to say something. But again, another issue that is also of very fundamental importance is the fact that there's no known legislation in Nigeria as of today for whistleblowing. And that makes it very difficult. So you can imagine that if I see a cultist and I go to report this cultist to the police, and we have to go and take statements at the police station. If trial is going on, I have to go to court.
You have to show your face.
So what happened is the fact that your life is unsafe by other fellow court members. So these are some of the issues that our legal system would need to accommodate. Because that's where, if you report a crime, police don't need your face. They just take your fat. And they go to do their work. And then they go to the court with their fat and not how they got the information. But here, it's completely different. If you go to police to report a case, you have to write statement. You have to prove it. And then, of course, that exposes you and make you vulnerable to attack. So this legal system also need to be enhanced so that when people blow whistle, they are protected. Their identities are concealed such that the criminal elements won't even be aware of who did what. So, and I think our own policing or policemen also need a lot of trainings in that regard, such that when people come to report crime, they don't have to pay for reporting a crime. So those incentives, if we put them in place, you will find that there'll be a lot of cooperation between the people of society and the law enforcement agency in terms of curbing crime. I agree with you that many criminals are known in the environment, but the kind of fear that comes upon you from the law enforcement officer is a big problem. I remember some years ago in our neighborhood, somebody came to steal something, and then he was apprehended. they took him to the police station. The chairman of the neighborhood association was now the one answering questions. Now the police turned the case against the chairman that he empowered a vigilante with a Dane gun. So the issue was not the man who stole. The problem became the man who had the Dane gun. And I tell you, we spent over 800,000
releasing the man
to ensure that, going to court, hiring a lawyer and the rest of it for security in your gate. It wasn't robbing. He caught an armed robber, someone who came to steal. And the case turned against him. So these are some of the challenges in our environment that needs to be addressed if you are going to find cooperation from members of society to help law enforcement agents in terms of reporting crime. So the absence of the whistleblower law is a major setback for intelligence gathering in Nigeria.
Thank you very much for that. Let's move on to the next story. Now, the federal government has unveiled a new national policy for the enhancement of Almajiri education, banning Almajiri learning centers from sending pupils to beg on street as part of reforms to the traditional Quranic education system. Now, the policy introduces compulsory literacy, numeracy, digital education, and vocational training. It also mandates the registration of all Almajiri learning centers and requires the biometric capture of learners nationwide. Under the new framework, graduates will receive nationally recognized certification, while schools that fail to comply with the policy risk sanctions, including possible closure. The government says that the reforms are aimed at improving educational standards and protecting the welfare of Almajiri pupils. I remember years back, a particular governor rounded up beggars in Lagos State and took them back to their state, and some other state governors do that. I know in Lagos, street begging is not that rampant, but in Ibadan, I know it's a whole different ballgame. Do you think that this new policy would reduce or totally eradicate street begging?
It's not even the street begging. It's the Almajiri system that should be abolished completely. There's no Almajiri in Saudi Arabia, where the Islamic religion comes from.
What even gave rise to it?
Why are the governors, especially in these Islamic states, cannot integrate this into a formal school? What stops children from learning Quran inside the classroom? That leave them with one malam? No. It should be absolutely, condemned, that system. And people say it's a culture. What kind of a very weird culture is that? That you gather small children and then after training they ask them to go and be begging something on the street. Anybody caught doing that should be in jail.
Street begging?
Yes. Anybody who is sending children to the street to go and beg, that person should be in jail. That's child abuse.
And the parents are aware of these?
Yeah, they are aware because they are taking it as a cultural thing. Oh, that's how we're trained. There's no culture around that. It's not decent. The Almajiri school system should be integrated into formal school system.
We have the Islamic religious knowledge. Is it different from this Islamic sense?
Yeah, but because they are teaching them Quran. Then if these children want to go to Quranic, let them go to a formal school. And have their theological education, where these children can be trained properly. But not to expose them to the streets, to go and beg for whatever reason. All of them are going to go. You have to inculcate it into the curriculum of the primary schools. The children should be in primary school. And this is done within the school system. Just the way they are teaching religious studies. So it should be taught in school. And children should not be exposed to this kind of a lifestyle in the 21st century. The people who are talking about this, they understand that this is not part of Islam. It's not part of it. So we should live decently. There's no emergency system in Qatar. There's no emergency system in Saudi Arabia. In Morocco, there's no emergency system. So why is there an emergency system in Nigeria? We are not the only Islamic country in the world. So we should do things decently. And cultures that does not make people progressive, find a way to eliminate them. Those schools should be shut. We shouldn't encourage it. Nigerian children should be given formal education. Nobody is saying they cannot be religious. Those who want to take to religion, then they can go to theological college and study Islam properly. Those who want to become scientists, go to school and learn science. All this system of indoctrinations that get people to suffer for too long and then they become very wild has to be discouraged.
Why are the governors not speaking?
I don't think the governors, for example, in the northern states, are having their children in their margeries.
Why are they not speaking up?
So these are the issues. So if your children, you are a proper Muslim or person, like the governor, your children is not in the school carrying plate to go and beg, why are you encouraging other children's people to go and beg in the street? Rather than provide decent environment for them to learn and become useful to themselves and to the entire society. This is why you are finding these people from the other side are having access to come harvest our children for criminal enterprises in the name of religious extremism and fanaticism. So this should not be tolerated at all. I don't think we should not be looking at we should scrap it completely.
If we scrap it, so what next? What if
these governors in Nigeria now are having so much money? They should expand their primary schools, expand their secondary schools to accommodate these structures. Nomadic life should stop. It should stop. Part of the crisis that the nation is facing today is this nomadism. Who is living a nomad life in the 21st century? All the argument about, say, people are, because they are doing cattle and they are having children along the way, so we go and put school inside the bush. Why? Denmark is making over $45 billion from dairy. They are not nomads. So why should our own case be different? And these people are trained abroad. They travel to Saudi. They travel to UAE. They go to Qatar. They see they are in Turkey. They see what's happening there. Do they see the system there? And we just try to politicize a whole lot of issues. Every decent Nigerian child should be in a formal education. Not to be staying in one unkempt place and then after a while ask them to go and be begging and then come to bring money. No. Okay, it should be discouraged.
Okay, so to the parents of this Marjorie, what do you think they can do? Because if we say we should scrap it and put them in schools, would they be able to afford putting their children in schools? Maybe
it's not, as a matter of fact, age 1 to 9, education in Nigeria is free by UBEC. So the state should assess their resource in UBEC and give their children education. So those are not arguments. They are not arguments that we should put on the table in the 21st century. There's so much that we can do. And there's so much resource that is in the hand of the state to develop these children. People are producing aircraft. People are producing all manners of things. Look at what Iran is producing in their school system. And somebody is sending children to the street to go and be begging for food and begging for money. That's absurd. Iran is an Islamic country. Go and check what their schools are doing. Do they have a emergency system? No. People are training their children to become philosophers, training their children to become scientists, training their children to become engineers. Yet they are still very religious people. Why must our own be different? I think the governors, especially who are tolerating these things, are themselves culpable. People should give children decent livelihood. And I think that is the way it should look like. Not just these random policy statements that people are making. We should scrap the system completely. Right. If we have to do animal husbandry, let there be ranch. People are within a system, and there's a school inside it where children go to school. And it should be a formal school. And they should be taken care of. And not keeping them in one unhealthy environment, and after a while ask them to go to the street to go and look for food and come back. That's not decent enough. All
right, thank you, Doctor. Let's quickly take this last story. Now, President Bola Tinubu has approved salary increases between 30 and 80% for personnel of the Nigerian Armed Forces. Now, the new pay package will benefit about 250,000 military personnel and is scheduled to take effect from September 1st, 2026. Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, announced the approval in a statement issued on Tuesday. He said the salary review adopts a graduated structure that gives the highest percentage increases to junior personnel. Now, the federal government says this pay adjustment is aimed at improving the welfare and morale of service members while strengthening operational effectiveness of the nation's armed forces. Doctor, this is a good one. I think before we were hearing the lowest rank was getting about 100,000 during President late Muhammadu Buhari's time. He increased it to 100,000 thereabouts. And now with this new increase, we've seen videos, viral videos. There was a particular soldier who came out to, give us a calculation, a rundown of how much he could get, what goes back to his family, and every other thing. Do you think this would actually boost the morale of our soldiers on the battlefield?
Yeah, I think the current Minister of Defense hinted at that before he became the Minister of Defense. The least paid worker was about 40,000. And the president graciously has increased it to 100,000. But of course, they are contemplating for that increase. And I think it's in line with that. But I think our soldiers should be well paid. The hazard involved is huge. Not just the soldiers alone, even the policemen. They need to be well paid. We need to raise the pay structure of policing. That's why it's not attracting decent people. So if you pay peanuts, like they say, you can only get monkeys as workers. So I think we need to do a lot better, ensure that you have military that are really sophisticatedly and motivated with even good insurance beyond the salary that they take home, so that in the eventuality of a casualty, the family don't suffer. And if in the course and in the line of duty, they become disabled, they can live the rest of their life very well. So all this incentive needs to be put in place so that it can be attractive to younger people to participate. Because we are not paying well, cerebral minds won't want to venture into those kind of area. Because if you look at it, all the technology that we talk about in the world today actually were spearheaded from the military, from telecommunication to call it medical science, engineering technology. Most of all these things were pioneered by the military, because very intelligent people gather together and think solutions, especially when they are in conflict situation. So I think we should do a lot better for our soldiers. I honestly feel we can do better for our soldiers who are hazarding their lives every day to keep all of us very secured.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you for sharing with us on SOUQ Business Landscape today. This is where we will draw the curtains on SOUQ Business Landscape for today. If you enjoyed it, why not comment, like, and share? And join us tomorrow for another thrilling edition of SOUQ Business Landscape. I am Olumide Shokoya. I'll see you next time.
I was in Nigeria up until SS1 third term, SS2, and after that I moved to France where I did my A levels, and then after that I moved to England where I did my undergrad, and then my masters I did in America. And European culture is European culture, right? For me, it's actually quite interesting because I learned so much more about Africa outside Africa, right? Because in the education I had in secondary school, there wasn't really much focus on our history or the greatness that Africa was. It almost seemed more like propaganda history, that our history pretty much just started slightly before colonization, and everything else we've become is either our journey to independence and carrying on the system that we're left with, right? Fortunately, schooling abroad brought this Afrocentric idea into my consciousness. Books about researchers that showed our history that goes all the way back to ancient Egypt, Timbuktu, the Great Empire of Mali, learn about people like Mansa Musa, connecting migrations from what is present-day Nigeria in the southwest up until the Nile Valley, and the different movements, migration patterns that happened between those two civilizations, right? Aside that, governance, giving one a higher expectation of what one should expect from government, giving one a higher expectation of what democracy should be or what it should look like, because you can't really operate outside of what you've been exposed to. You know, when the mind has been expanded, it cannot go back to its former size, right? And experiencing what quality education is like, experiencing what good governance is like, experiencing a health system that works, a health system that is checking on people before they get sick, because they know that on the long run, that will keep the cost of healthcare coverage lower. Preventative medicine as opposed to constantly solving problems as they're happening. Understanding the value of data, data-driven policy, and how all these come together to create a system that works and that people can thrive in. Understanding the value of people paying taxes, right? And the services they get in return of those taxes. I think these are some of the things that I got from my exposure schooling abroad. And then when I moved back to Nigeria, I did my NYC, and then I started working. I worked in some architecture firms while also running mine and getting some projects, and then went into business. And then when I wanted to go into politics, after leading a GMO campaign alongside other notable patriotic Nigerians, I decided that, you know, experiencing leading a 2,000-man march on the Senate and understanding how they responded to us, which in my opinion did not show people that actually prioritize the well-being of their people, I felt that it's important to go into politics. Okay, so I ran for student council president in high school and won. So politics that way, yeah, you can say since I was 19, having an idea, having the manifesto and selling that idea, understanding problems and proffering solutions and implementation strategies. Yeah, so I can say 18, 19. When I came back and after the GMO, for those that don't know, genetic modified foods, We led a 2-year campaign against the Ministry of Agriculture that was chaired at the time by Akinwumi Adesina to prevent the adoption of genetic modified foods in Nigeria. And that process, engaging politicians and our representatives, I felt that Nigerians deserve better. And I'm not one to just complain and point fingers or tweet on social media. I believe if you engage in something, you need to see it all the way. So I ran for local government chairman. But before that, I actually went to UNILAG and got a master's in research and public policy. Now, I had some very brilliant professors, without a doubt, some very, very brilliant professors. People like Professor Jikutu, people like Professor Logbenla, Onoha, a number of very brilliant people. But at the same time, in relation to the level of organization, there's still a way to go, you know. And I think this also comes down to funding our universities properly, ensuring that our professors are well paid, ensuring that we have enough professors, because a lot of our professors, they are taking so many classes with so many students and they have to bring in their A game to all of these things. We need to prioritize education a lot more in this country, you know. Nigerians are some of the most brilliant human beings in this world. Brilliant. And I'm talking, I just named 3 different countries that have operated in terms of education. And then there are some other 4 countries that have done work in and I currently have interest in. And Nigerians are there and they are doing wonderful things, right? So we're an intelligent group of people. What we need are the structures and organization that create an enabling environment for us to thrive. I mean, think about what it takes to be successful in this country today. Think about what it takes to be successful in Lagos. Now, imagine a government that puts everything in place and is more like a partner than, you know, this person that's just trying to take from me, right? You would experience an exponential increase in wealth. I think that a person that values education must have had a very good education. If you don't value education, it's a reflection of your own education. I can't think of somebody that's experienced good education that will not prioritize education, because you will know the power of education. And this goes to show when we talk about how it's okay for someone with a NEPA certificate to be our president, and we see the ruin that it brought Nigeria to, or a person that's using lawyers to hide his certificates, right? It will reflect in the quality of your education. So I feel that we need to start demanding more from people that aspire to lead us. Go and look at the quality of education that the leaders of America got. They either went to Yale or Harvard or recently Princeton, Ivy League schools. The top of us have to lead. This idea that you can just pick anybody to lead you to where? This person is like this with you. Where is he leading you to? What vision is this person bringing that is outstanding? Your leader should be outstanding. He cannot be, or she cannot be part of the flock. You understand? They must be outstanding, either in their strength of character. So you look at America when they want to select their president, George Washington. Why? Because when there was war, the man stood in front. He was a leader. Intelligence, he was a leader. These were people that were inventors. Benjamin Franklin. These were people that were inventing things. They were not just thought leaders. They were on ground. They were policy leaders. They were kings in their own right. It was not a commoner. And I don't mean commoner in the sense of money. You see, people think it's just about money. No, it's about what are your values? What are you willing to stand for? What do you stand for? Right? If the wind blows, you just move to the place that favors your pocket. You clearly don't have a backbone. So how can you lead? And people will say, okay, they just want somebody that they can associate with. Yes, but associate with in what way? In poverty and failure and mediocrity, or in success and a vision that will benefit you, your family, and your children, and the greater society, right? Because if you think about it, I say this thing in most interviews I do. My father tells me that his father told him that Nigeria was better in his day. My father told me Nigeria was better in his day. My father graduated, there were jobs, you could get car. Like, only the man had to work, the wife could be a housewife, and they were comfortable. They did not need to steal, to travel, to go on holiday. Right? He came into that. Quality education. There was public education. Right? His father was a judge. His father's driver could send his child to the same school as his boss's son. And they got quality education. Now, I can tell my children that I remember a time when Nigeria was better. When I would change 1 million naira and get 4,000 pounds. I can barely get 1 million naira now with 500 pounds. Do you understand? So it's perpetually in a nosedive. And why is that? Lack of continuity in quality leadership and visionary leadership, right? No leader that is truly focused on creating a Nigerian identity that celebrates our uniqueness and our differences and sees that as a resource as opposed to something that divides us, right? People that are traveling to the UAE, they are going there to enjoy the culture. And this culture is old, it's ancient, but they've repackaged it. That makes people want to come and visit, want to come and spend their hard-earned money there, right? And this is the visionary type of ideas I'm talking about that will create jobs, right? Well, you know, it's a very interesting one. I grew up in a Nigeria where I went to ISL, and speaking traditional languages was called, there's a word for it, starts with C, not vernacular, there was something else. There's another word, it starts with a C. You could not do that. It was against the school rules, right? And you get punished for that. And then even at the time, there was this whole idea of this person, this is local. Like, young people, I remember young people saying that is local. The people were not interested with identifying with Nigerian music. Then it was hip hop, it was about Biggie, Puff Daddy, you know, international music. I'm sure I'm betraying my age now. Well, my age is not 80 now, 42. But I'm talking about the time where nobody was wearing trad. We grew up seeing our parents wearing suits, trousers and shirts, you know. And like I said, I don't feel that the education that we got in Nigeria really laid any foundation for you to look deeper into our history, into our culture. And I know this now because I've experienced education elsewhere. And I know how the British lay emphasis on their history. So that even if you're an art student or a science student, you had an in-depth knowledge of the history of your people. And this history is not just a linear one. It's one that is connecting different events and moments and always trying to show your people to be great, right? So you see the British will hide the idea of the part they played in slavery and enslavement. It will not be prominent in the history, but where they conquered or where they uprooted slavery from the African continent, the role they played in doing that will be highlighted, right? That is curated. Now you might say that's not right, it's not fair, but they're programming their citizenry. And that is what a thinking government will prioritize. Same thing with America, right? So I don't really feel we had that in our education system. But then there was an Afrocentric awakening that happened later on. And this had also happened earlier. The kind of thinking that informed people like Nnamdi Azikiwe when he traveled to America the kind of thinking that informed Fela Nicola Kuti when he traveled to America or even to England, where he met Afro-British people that knew the histories of Africa, that awoken that idea in him, in Fela, in Nnamdi Azikiwe, in a number of Africans, in Kwame Nkrumah, right? They didn't get it at home, they got it elsewhere, and they came and they brought that, we are African, we are great, black is beautiful, you know? And when you open that doorway, it then starts to lead you into understanding your culture more, understanding the depth of it, you see? And it's not our fault, right? We're conquered, our kings were removed, at least the kings that had the courage to fight, they were removed, they were exiled, some were killed, our people were kidnapped with the collaboration of some Africans, our people were kidnapped and sold. Some of the strongest men were kidnapped and sold. So you have diaspora cousins and everybody outside of the country, the few that were saved, you know, were brought back. But you now had a situation of religion. And unfortunately, the religion that came through in partnership with colonization pretty much said to us that everything that we were before them was bad, was evil, was demonic. So you have a people that claim that they are from a certain tribe, speak the language, but the depth of the thinking they associate with being evil. So there's still a significant level of identity crisis that we struggle with. And you don't really see that with Indians who were colonized by the British. You don't really see it with the Chinese who also dealt with their own level of colonization, nor the Japanese, right? And you see, understanding your identity or crafting your identity as a people, because China, as we're seeing it today, was not just monolithic. It was not just one group of people. There are huge, different groups of people all over China, different tribes, but they were united by a visionary king. Similar thing happened in Japan, right? Similar thing happened in England, right? In England, you had part in what you call England, or what was Great Britain or England at the point. You had the Welsh, you had the Scottish, you had the Irish, right? You know, and they were united at the point by a conqueror, right? So sometimes you also craft identity. Sometimes identity is created by facing a threat that is bigger than all of you independently. So you have to come together to face that. And sometimes it's just visionary leadership, right? You see visionary leadership in Singapore with Lee Kuan Yew. We saw that creates an identity that you can be proud of. Like there is no China man now, or even if there will be very few that will not be proud of China and not want to be associated with the bigger identity of China as opposed to their identity as a tribe, because China is so great and it pays you to be associated with it. It is when there's a failure in that bigger identity that people recoil back to their smaller identity, right? And that's what you find going on in a lot of places. But all in all, yeah. I think the government, you see, what has happened is because we've had governments or politicians that don't really have a vision to sell, they rely on selling division, because the classic divide and rule strategy. If you have a vision, you want to sell a vision and unite people. Visions unite people, right? So you sell a vision, so people unite behind the vision. When you don't have a vision, so you sell the vision so that people can be separated. When you separate people, it's easier to rule over them. And you see that has happened significantly from the last election, right? And you then see in how the government has ruled this country. Significant nepotism, significant levels of corruption, significant levels of lack of transparency or accountability. You see that the government is very extractive without really paying any attention to being accountable to the people they want to extract from. You see that they talk about stopping subsidy payments. And there was a hope that those monies that would have otherwise been used for subsidies would have been put to make life easier for Nigerians. Life is not easier for Nigerians. Inflation rates are at an all-time high, right? Insecurity is at an all-time high. For the first time in decades, we're having a foreign country bombing our land, our territory, which is an indictment on the failure of our security system. And you think about how much money is spent on these things, on our army, on our military, that goes unaccounted for. And you see how corruption is rewarded by ambassadorial appointments. So there's a lot of politicking as opposed to governance. And it is in quality governance, creating excellence in governance, where you are moving away from personalities to institutions. And people are now normalizing an excellent standard of service, right? So it's no more about the personality, it's about the quality of governance. Once that starts to be ticked, right, people will start to embrace the idea of Nigeria. When Nigeria is playing football, nobody is saying that that man is from this tribe, this person is from this tribe, especially if we are doing well. Everybody wants to be associated with that greatness that is Nigeria. When I finished school, I'm telling you, I went to a school where you did not have to leave the school to get the best jobs. Those companies came to do interview on campus. And I'm saying that myself and all my friends that were Nigerian were rushing to move back to Nigeria. It's not that we did not have the jobs or the potential jobs. We were so excited about Nigeria at the time under President Obasanjo, what he had achieved, the quality of his governance, the quality of his ministers, that there was a significant fear of missing out. And so many people, and I tell this to young people today, that there was a time where people were rushing back from countries like America, from England, and they can't imagine it, So it's about creating good governance, creating excellence in governance. And everybody wants to be associated with success and greatness. There was a time where we had governments that were very empathetic to the common man. They were welfarist to an extent. Governments like Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, and that was really the ideology of Obafemi Awolowo. It was very welfarist. So civil servants did not have to hustle for housing. They had quality housing in prime areas. Affordable housing was a priority. It was prioritizing the people that were the middle class, that were the working class. That is the role of government. But you find that now government is more fixated on producing properties or being involved in properties for the rich. Whether it is how they are allocating land, whether it is in how they are sand filling. I mean, how many Nigerians can afford to live at Eko Atlantic? I read this year where they were proudly talking about how they are sand filling and reclaiming land in some parts of Lagos for housing. By the time you've done all of that, your unit cost will be so significant that no average person will be able to afford to live there. Meanwhile, we have huge tracts of land in Ojo, Amuwo, Badagry, Ikorodu, Ekpe, Ibeju-Lekki that we can channel proper urban planning, bring in industries there, and focus on creating infrastructure that makes people want to live there. And then creating local governments that are independent in themselves. So most of the major services you need are in there. So nobody's going from Ikeja to Yaba for school. These are things that cause traffic. It's like the boroughs in London. You cannot even get into a borough outside of where you pay your council tax. Why? Because your taxes are used to fund the schools in that community. So it's a direct correlation. So your child can get into schools in the immediate vicinity of where you live. And that local council is doing their best to create affordable housing, council flat, and unemployment benefits, things like that, from the taxes. You understand? And that's what is missing significantly here. You've talked about flooding. Flooding is tied to our drainage systems and it's tied to our waste disposal systems and waste management systems, right? That in itself is also tied to the traffic that we have, especially in rainy season. It's also tied to traffic outside of rainy season because if your water is not draining properly, it's destroying your roads. That's how we then get potholes. That also causes traffic. That also spoils cars, which then leads to cars breaking down the road, which then leads to traffic. So it's an entire holistic system that must be solved in a holistic way. And there's a famous saying that you can never solve a problem from the same headspace or mindset in which that problem was created. You must step out of it to solve that problem. So this problem must be solved in a holistic way. Why are our gutters still open? All these our elites, they're not even elite. Our politicians, our political leaders, they travel abroad. Shibe, our president, has gone to, I think he's gone somewhere to Europe and then the Middle East. I'm sure he's not seeing open gutters when he goes to Dubai, right, or England or France, right? I'm sure he knows of the proper draining systems in these places, right? So we need to do better as a people. I even think it's wrong to use Lagos as a mirror. You cannot compare Lagos to any other state in this country. Lagos, first, was a water-facing arm for the Benin Empire at a point, which was very powerful at a point. It was, aside from the Awori and children of Olofin that came and settled it, the monarchy was from Benin, and it was a water-facing arm of the Benin Empire. Then Lagos then received all the influx of Europeans that came in for colonization. Lagos was the port in which Nigeria was formed. There was a time where all politics in Nigeria happened in Lagos. Everybody from all over came to Lagos. Think about the level of exposure. Think about the level of development from back then. Think about the level of commerce, level of finance from back then. Then you now had influx of returnees that had either paid for their freedom or people that were saved, that were never enslaved and got education in Sierra Leone, because that was where the first secondary school was, and came back. I'm talking about people like Samajai Crowder, grandfather of Herbert Macaulay, Henry Carr, H.O. Davis, and so many others that literally laid the foundation for the freedom and independence that we then got later on. Think about the intellectual capital that came in here. Think about all the skill sets that came into Lagos, the buildings that were built, the level of development, the amount of resource that came into Lagos with that. Then after that, Lagos then became this capital. Think about all the investments that came with that, all the infrastructure that was created by the Nigerian state before it now relocated to Abuja. And then today, Lagos is now the commercial capital. Most companies that exist in this country have their headquarters here. So it's extremely unfair to compare. Lagos State it's like that child that has been blessed and blessed and blessed. You know, it's like all the other children were on the farm and all the prophets were just coming and blessing and blessing and blessing. It's not fair to compare Lagos to any other state. It cannot be compared. But yes, that's the one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is the extreme need for infrastructure, right? Which, I mean, we have huge IGR because of the human beings that are here. So those money should be put into creating infrastructure for them to have is a beautiful quality of life, to be more productive, to be able to earn more, which would then increase the IGR that Lagos generates, right? You know, so it's all tied into each other. Well, first of all, it's not a thing that's unique to me. You know, the APC Lagos, especially, the APC Lagos arm of politics is bigotry. Is based on bigotry. I mean, there's still pictures of banners that were hung of Jimmy Agbaje being called Jimmy Chukwu, governor of the Southeast. This is a man that is blue blood from Ikorodu. We know his grandfather. We know his antecedents. We know what he did. This is not somebody that his history or his pedigree or his name or his age or his sex is under question or under any kind of controversy. We know him. We know his grandfather. We know his father. We know his family. Right? And this is what they did. So anybody that seemingly rises to challenge the Tinubu hegemony, the first thing that is challenged is your Yorubaness. Right? I remember when they were saying that even somebody like Padi Banjo, the reason why he supported Peter Obi or was anti-Tinubu was because his mother was Igbo. Or they said Obasanjo's father is this. Anytime somebody challenges the Tinubu hegemony, they attack your identity. They try to strip you of your Yorubaness. In my situation, unfortunately for them, they could not challenge my family. They could not challenge our history. There are all sorts of nonsense. But I give God the glory that my parents are alive. You know, I give God the glory that my family has a very good habit of keeping records, all the way to newspaper articles from the 1800s. So imagine if one did not have that. Imagine if one's parents were not alive and these people just came together with this propaganda. You start questioning, what's really going on? But I thank God. I come from a family that history has written a lot about, you know, so we know who we are. And as Lagosians, Amorawa, we know ourselves. Because one is in politics now, there are a lot more things that people are saying about me. But I've been Afrocentric for a very long time. All you need to do is go and read my blogs. I still have a blog under if you search for it, The Hopeful Nigerian. And I've been advocating for history to return back to our schools, our traditions, our culture. The idea that no, not everything that existed before the Oyinbo man came here was bad. Right? There's bad in everything. There are people that call themselves Muslims that are killing people. There are people that were calling themselves Christian that were doing crusades and massacring people. I mean, for goodness sake, the first slave ship that came to Nigeria, to Africa, was called Jesus. The Pope blessed people that were going to go and kill indigenous people all over the world. So there are good and bad people in every culture, in every belief system, right? And this idea that everything that we were before Christianity or any of the major religions means